Imagine you are in the middle of an argument. The air was as tense as a piano string. The other person stares at you, waiting for you to say something stupid, scream, cry, or react emotionally. And then in that moment, you feel your heart beating faster, your breathing quickening, your mind hot. You want to refute, want to say something to defend yourself. I understand that feeling because I used to be like that too. But there's one thing I realized. If you react in anger, you not only lose the argument, but you also lose yourself. Losing composure, initiative, and sometimes even losing the person you love. The question is there any way to steady yourself in such situations? Can you be so calm that others cannot move you? The answer is yes. And that doesn't come from being stronger, smarter, or knowing how to speak sharper. It comes from one simple thing: inner mastery. In this video, I'll share with you how I and many others have learned to stay strong in the face of emotional challenges, not to avoid or suppress, but to overcome and come out stronger. If you've ever felt tired of easily losing control or hurt by unnecessary words, then this is the time to take back your strength, and I will walk with you through that journey. I know that when hearing the word Stoicism, many people will immediately think of something distant, dry, even cold. Maybe you imagine a person without emotions, without expressing anything, as if they were completely disconnected from the world. But actually, being stoic is not like that. It's not about being so tough that no one can touch you, which is up to you, strong inside, enough to not be swept away by what happens outside. Stoicism for me is not a philosophy of reading to remember, but one very practical way of life. It doesn't teach you to be an emotionless person. It teaches you how to live true to your emotions, but don't let your emotions control you. In a world where everyone is easily angry, easily sad, easily worried, Stoicism is like an anchor holding you back in the middle of the storm. You cannot avoid difficult situations in life, conflicts, failures, and losses, but you can choose how to react to them. Stoics do not seek to change the world. They focus on the only thing they can control: yourself. I remember a time when I encountered something unpleasant at work. Someone said something that made me very angry. Before, I would react immediately, sometimes arguing back or holding on to my anger all day. But as I began to understand Stoicism, I learned to stop. I asked myself, will getting angry now change anything, or will it just make things worse? And just by asking that question, I chose differently. I was silent, I breathed, and I kept calm. And you know, that doesn't make me weak. On the contrary, it makes me stronger. Because for the first time, I saw myself clearly can choose how to live instead of reacting instinctively. Stoicism, simply put, is learning how don't let the world pull you away, but you drive yourself through it. And that's when you begin to feel true freedom. I want you to imagine a situation that you have certainly experienced. Maybe in an argument with your lover, or in a tense meeting with a colleague. Someone says something that makes you feel hurt. Maybe they criticize you, judge you, or simply use a tone that makes you feel belittled. And immediately you feel a surge of heat. Heart beats faster, face hot, hands clenched. And in your mind, there is only one thought: I have to say it again. I have to respond. I have to prove I'm right. I understand that feeling very well because I used to be like that too. The reality is, most of us fall into this trap. We are pulled into a game without our realizing it. A game where the other person does not speak to understand, but speaks to anger, to push us to the limit, to see when we lose control. And once you react impulsively, you lose the most precious thing: calmness and mastery. We often think that when we react, we are protecting ourselves, but in fact, most reactions in anger do not bring the results we want. Instead of being respected, we may be more despised. Instead of solving the problem, we make it more complicated, and worse, after getting over the heat, I regret what I said and did. I once had an argument with a relative just because of an unintentional statement. At that time, I felt like I was insulted. I couldn't help it. I said it right back with a very harsh voice. What happens in the end? No one wins. The relationship fell apart, and it took me a week to feel good again. But what I remember most is not their anger, but the feeling of disappointment in my heart afterward. I let a second of losing control destroy the things I once cherished. Later, when approaching Stoicism, I learned something simple but extremely powerful. Reaction is a choice, not an instinct. You don't need to react immediately when emotions arise. You can stop. Just a few seconds, enough to take a breath, look at yourself, and ask yourself, if I stay silent right now, am I weak or am I stronger than ever? And you know, the more times I choose to be calm, the more I realize I'm no longer easily controlled by someone. People can say what they want, but I'm the one who decides how I respond, and that, to me, is true freedom. We cannot stop others from provoking us, but we can refuse to play their way. When someone tries to annoy you, don't feel like you have to respond right away. They only win when you lose yourself. And if you keep your sanity and peace in your heart, no matter how hard they try, they cannot touch the strongest part of you. And that's the biggest win. I used to think that to be stronger in life, I needed to completely change to be tougher, speak sharper, and even become cooler so that no one could hurt me anymore. But then I realized real strength doesn't come from building a high wall around yourself. It comes from within, from understanding yourself, controlling your emotions, and knowing how to live calmly amid daily chaos. And that's when I learned about simple Stoic principles that completely changed the way I live and communicate. One of the most important principles that I apply every day is to clearly distinguish between what I can control and what I can't. In the past, I often got frustrated when someone misunderstood me or when the person I loved didn't behave as I expected. I kept clinging to the feeling of they have to be like this, they have to be like that. But the truth is, we cannot control other people's thoughts, actions, or emotions. The only thing I can do is choose how I react. When I let go of what is out of my reach, I feel lighter. And instead of wasting my energy trying to change others, I put my energy into changing myself into a calmer, more clear-headed person. I also began to change the way I looked at conflicts in relationships. In the past, when someone hurt me, my first reflex was to want to fight back, like a defense mechanism. They say I'm in pain. I have to make them hurt again. But then I realized when I reacted like that, even if I felt satisfied for a moment, there was always regret afterward. Because instead of protecting myself, I made the relationship worse. So I began to ask myself, is this reaction getting me where I want to go? Is it getting me closer or further away from the other person? That little question has held me back many times when I was about to lose control. And gradually, I stopped reacting impulsively. I know how to breathe, stop, then speak. Another thing I practice every day is empathy. It sounds easy, but it's actually very challenging, especially when the person in front of you is angry, screaming, or upset. But instead of thinking, this person is terrible, I learned to ask myself, what is hurting them so much that they have to behave this way? When I see them as a hurting person, instead of someone attacking me, I no longer want to retaliate. I want to understand. And sometimes, just a well-timed silence, a non-reactive look, is enough to calm the atmosphere. Not because I lost, but because of me. Choose not to participate in that fight. Another principle that I really love is gratitude. Before, I often paid attention to the things I didn't have, a compliment, a reply message, a job opportunity. But Stoicism teaches me to look at the things I have, even the smallest ones. Every night, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for during the day: a delicious meal, a friend checking in, a moment of quiet. Strangely enough, when you focus on what you have, you're not easily swayed by what others take away, because you realize you are more complete than you thought. And finally, perhaps the most important thing that Stoicism teaches me is to learn how to let go of clinging, not letting go out of frustration, but letting go of the feeling of must have, must be recognized, must be loved properly, must always be right. Those things make me stressed, always in a state of lack. But when I dare to ask, if I lose this, will I still be myself? And the answer is yes. I feel more free. Freedom from expectations, from pressure, from the fear of being left behind. Stoic principles do not make me someone else. They just help me become the most resilient version of yourself. And I believe if you start trying little by little, you will also feel that you don't need to control everything to live peacefully. You just need to be in control of yourself. And that is true power. You know, after everything I share, there's one thing I always remember. True power doesn't lie in controlling others, but in keeping yourself, even when everything around you is trying to pull you away from your center. There will always be people who touch your weakness, situations that make you want to explode. But if you stop, take a breath, and choose calm, you have won. It's not about winning against the other person. It's about winning over yourself from yesterday. You don't have to be perfect to live peacefully. You just need to practice patiently, little by little. From the way you stay quiet, to the way you look at everything with gratitude, to the way you empathize instead of reacting. And then one day, you will realize no one can make you lose your balance unless you allow it to happen.